What's going on, everybody? This is Chris Classic dropping a live on a car blog. Hope you guys are having a wonderful day. If nobody tells you, remember that God loves you, Christ loves you, and I love you as well. Hope you guys are having a wonderful afternoon going on the evening. Make sure you subscribe to the Taking Home podcast where I talk about professional wrestling topics. I interview wrestlers and I put up my matches as a classic out for a professional wrestler of 13 years. Make sure you also subscribe to C3 Ultimate Wrestling. That is me and my wife's professional wrestling company. 2 days away, August 30th, the 11th hour in Dyer, Indiana, Harold's private venue. We are 2 days away from history being made. So make sure you get your tickets. Tickets are $5 off on Eventbrite. So this is in the Dyer, Indiana area. So if you are near the state line between Illinois and Indiana, it's right there. If you're in Chicago Heights, right there. Chicago, down the street. Hammond, right there. East Chicago, Indiana, right there. Hammond, St. John, South Holland, right around the corner from a lot of spots. It's very convenient. It's a lot of restaurants and stuff there. Harold's private venue has a restaurant next to it with some great fried chicken, so make sure you guys get that as well. $5 more at the door. That's the general admission. Bars. I was asked by a friend of mine, Arshawn from Clippy Drinking. Shout out to him. He's a sponsor for C3 Ultimate Wrestling Presents the 11th Hour. So we talk a lot about wrestling and stuff like that, and he has great insight and stuff like that. He respects the business and he talks about it eloquently when it comes to certain things, right? It's not like, oh, I just know everything. Like, he has confidence is what he's saying, and he's respecting the business. He's not trying to pull back layers and stuff like that. And sometimes he has questions. So this comes from him. You guys know that I did not want to really speak about the Rajah Jackson situation anymore. I made like 2 videos, and even after my second video, it was more stuff coming out, and I think that it's probably going to get worse. Like when I said in the aftermath that it was going to be worse, it was just going to be worse situation. But his main question was like, well, a situation like that, how can that affect or possibly affect independent wrestling promotions, other ones? C3 Ultimate Wrestling is obviously my baby, but it is still an independent wrestling show. Top quality, of course, but still, it is what it is. So could these kind of situations, could it affect? Now, I've briefly spoke about it on the last 2 videos when I did speak about it, of how it can affect other independent wrestling shows. I spoke about it lightly, but he wanted me to go a little bit in depth with it. Okay, and I'll do that. When you're trying to rent a venue as an independent wrestling company, sometimes they don't understand what we do. Like, it doesn't matter if we type it and we explain it and stuff like that. Sometimes they're going to automatically loop it into MMA. They're going to loop it into fighting, boxing. They're going to loop it into even collegiate wrestling, amateur and stuff like that. Jiu-jitsu, all of that stuff, grappling arts, and in a way it is, but at the same time, they're going to group it into that. So when they group it into that, they automatically call it like a blood sport, if you will. They'll say, okay, well, it's violence, it's promoting violence and things like that. That's what some companies are, that's what some venues and some spots are going to do. Trust me, I've messaged a lot of companies and areas and stuff like that. Hey, this is something for the community, which it is. It's a way of serving and things like that. It's entertainment for the family. Sometimes they just look at something. And now, let's say, for example, I do go to a venue and say, hey, we do professional wrestling. Why don't you check it out? And they could literally type in wrestling, right? They could just put in wrestling, and then the first thing you'll probably see is Rajah Jackson situation. I have a lot of channels that I subscribe to that are non-wrestling channels, right? Almost a lot of the top ones that I look at have spoken about it. The ones who I've subscribed to. They don't really watch it. They don't bring up wrestling for like anything else. Probably the last thing they did talk about, unfortunately, was Hulk Hogan's passing, right? But other than that, they rarely talk about wrestling. But this was like a main topic. People are following the follow-ups. They're looking at the reactions. The guy who saved his friend who was about to fight Rajah. A lot of people. C.T. Fletcher, he interviewed the guy who said that he can get his receipt. And then apparently he lost his booking at that spot and he lost his job and stuff like that. And he's kind of going on a tour speaking about the situation, So it can affect other companies in a bad way. Shout out to you, SMP. Could it affect indie wrestling not more than it is already? Like I saw the story and it reminded me of the promotion Scott Hall was in. He was in a bender long ago. Yeah, Scott, rest in peace. He used to show up so messed up and unsober and stuff like that. And that companies that will book him and they go viral for that. Going viral, I understand wanting to do it because you are in people's algorithm, you're in their mind and stuff like that. You get what I'm saying? And I understand that, but at the same time, you can go viral for the wrong reasons. The guy who said the stuff about the receipt, he lost his job, he lost his bookings. A lot of people don't want nothing to do with him. I don't technically feel bad for him, I don't wish no harm or ill will towards him, but at the same time, you're talking to a non-wrestler using our terms and explain it to him on camera. And I don't know how many people was looking at the stream or whatever like that. Like, to be honest, he shouldn't even been back there to begin with. Oh, he's your friend and he's the son of an MMA legend. That does not give him a free pass to go back there and stuff like that. Like I said, to me, it was ridiculous and it should have been resolved even after the situation. Indie promotions, I would say, must be responsible like any other business. Wow. Just like your business, you must look after the safety of your talent, workers, and fans. Shout out to you, Jean Ray. I hope I'm saying it right, from South Africa. Shout out to you. Yes, you have to hold yourself accountable. And I think that usually when it's negative, or if it's a negative situation, people generalize the negative of stuff. Hey, I had a bad experience with this. I'm going to group it with everything. Like, it's very hard to try to sell professional wrestling as family-friendly entertainment because of stuff like this in certain situations, because some people are really go as far as saying, oh, well, we're going to watch a wrestling show, hopefully nobody gets knocked out or almost pass away or attempted MURDER. A lot of people do feel that way into certain things with the situation, because a lot of people, they feel like it is a sense of violence. You still have some families that don't even let their kids watch wrestling because they see it as a form of violence. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, well, they're completely wrong because of what we incite and what we promote. But at the same time, it still can be family-friendly entertainment. There's other things that are very dangerous, right? Very, very dangerous. And this isn't to like try to say, oh, well, think about this and think about that. So I try my best to not speak about or bring up anybody else's active profession or anything, or activities or hobbies. But there's a lot of things that we do to entertain fans. It's not even wrestling. It's a whole bunch of other avenues, right? But still, it's still something to bring the family together and stuff like that. So even with that, this kind of situation could make it bad for other independent companies. It may not be the major independent companies, but ones that are just starting and stuff like that, because this is the main thing that people are talking about. Main people are talking about this. They're not talking about, okay, well, what's going to happen with this and that. No, they're thinking about, okay, well, let me see what happened. Somebody's going to say something. People are waiting for Raja to speak about it. They're waiting for Rampage to speak more about it and stuff like that. The fallout is, WWE has separated themselves from their wrestling company. Dude lost his job and some of his bookings. Stu is up and he's talking and stuff like that. He's still healing, still in pain. Like, it's just a whole bunch of stuff. And it's like, a lot of us didn't know who some of these people were, and now we do. And this is the thing about it. It's bad enough that companies and even WWE is trying to show everything backstage and what's going on. A lot of you guys was introduced to what happens in locker rooms sometimes. Sometimes it's not even a locker room. Sometimes it's just in the backyard or like a bar and grill, wherever they was at. So, yeah, when he said give him a receipt, it was like a parent telling a daycare instructor to spank their child. Irresponsible. Exactly. What's up, Raymond? Nice hearing from you. So, yeah, it messes it up because a lot of companies, they promote. I don't want to say violence, but they promote certain things like that or whatever like that. Like even like Rampage, when he was trying to validate it for his son, he was like, oh man, that's wrong. But maybe they're trying to do like hardcore and stuff like that, strong style and death matches. That's what he was referring to. And clearly that's not what they were talking about. That's exactly, they weren't doing that at all, And like, shout out to the guy that actually stopped Raja, and then he actually got hit. He got busted open by Raja, and then Raja tried to take him down before he punched him, and it just didn't work. See, it could have went a lot worse, and it would have been a lot worse for wrestling. I know a lot of people would be like, well, what can something that happened in another company, what in California, could affect a company in Indiana? It definitely can. Some spots will look at that and be like, oh no, we don't want to promote this kind of stuff at our venue and stuff like that, because they still want more customers. So they'll call you and say, hey, we're not interested in doing something like this. This would be hard to try to sell to schools and stuff like that, because almost everybody saw the video. Almost everybody saw the video, or they made a video talking about it. I have people who are subscribed to are comedians and stuff like that. They spoke about it for like 30, 40 minutes and stuff like that, because it's the talk of the town. So people will look at that and be like, oh, well, this could possibly happen in my venue. Somebody could possibly flatline. Somebody could possibly have their face broken and teeth knocked out and stuff like that. These are things that could really happen. And unfortunately, when you're trying to sit here and say, hey, this is family friendly, it's going to be hard to sell that when you have a guy who wasn't even a wrestler, who had no business in the ring, hurting, assaulting a professional wrestler. And I know a lot of people are saying like the police are investigating and stuff like that, but then even the investigation exposes the business more than what it is. Because it's already a physical and it's already contact. It's already contact sport. And then now it's like, oh wait, there's a level to this that we got to pull back on. The whole situation was ridiculous and it was avoidable. I'm not sitting here saying that as a wrestling promoter myself, dealing with the board and stuff like that, I do everything right. But there's some things it's just like you just know better than. You just know better than. You see that this man was upset. And you're like, okay, well, let me give him a wrestling terminology and say, tell him what it is on camera in front of his clan, in front of his group of people that he's streaming with. Come on, man. This also affects martial artists because people are going to think MMA fighters are nothing but loose cannons. And that's the bad part, right? Like, people consider MMA fighters, their hands and feet and legs, lethal weapons already. So when you do stuff like that, and then he was even talking about it afterwards, I ain't no punk, I'm not this, I'm not that, I'm sick of everybody calling me this and calling me that. And I'm like, first of all, like, come on, man. And then it come to find out his father said he had a concussion 2 days ago. You have no reason to be in the ring. Excuse me, y'all. You have no reason to be in the ring if you have concussion. If you're going through a whole bunch of stuff, you have no reason to be in the ring. And this is the bad part about wrestling sometimes, because there are some wrestlers who wrestle injured a lot. Bryan Danielson spoke about it. A lot of other wrestlers speak about it too. I have a torn this, or I have that, or I've been putting off this surgery and stuff like that. And that could honestly hurt somebody or hurt themselves, let alone kill them. What's going on, Beauty on Magic? Nice hearing from you, reading from you. So it's already like MMA and pro wrestling, they haven't had like a beef or like they've been going at it. But some people feel a certain way about wrestling. MMA fighters feel a certain thing about wrestling, and some wrestlers feel certain things about MMA. You know, some feel like MMA fighters feel like, okay, since they feel like they're so legit, they can do anything and stuff like that. And then MMA fighters think that the wrestling world is just so the F word that I don't say on this channel and stuff like that. And they're not really tough and all of that stuff. That's why they're so intertwined, which is funny because MMA, especially in the past decade or so, they have taken a lot of elements from wrestling to make stuff more interesting. Like, nothing against MMA fighters and stuff, because you do have some people that are just born with that personality. But like, if these guys just go out and fight, nobody knows anything about them. But if you have like a larger than life character like a Conor McGregor and stuff like that, then people will be like, okay, well, what is he going to say? You get what I'm saying? It's very important to understand that it's an element to it. Now, I do not play Fortnite. WWE dropped Nox Pro wrestling due to the crazy situation. The thing that gets me is the most, they squashed the beef, shook hands, it was cool. Then you got the YMCA cowboy telling what to do. Yeah, that's the bad part too, is that this guy, you shook hands, even if the guy slapped him. And I've already said my piece about how the can spot didn't even need to happen. But even if he slapped him, the fact that y'all shook hands afterwards and you said that it's okay, you should have just, you know, honestly, as a promoter, you should have seen how upset this guy was, and you should have sent him home. What you don't do is, oh, we're going to let you get your lick back on your stream channel or whatever. And this, mind you, you're exposing the business, by the way, because the camera is still rolling. And you're saying, oh, you can get your lick back and stuff like that. Look, man, I understand the business is exposed. to the highest degree. But come on, man, y'all could at least keep some stuff. Keep some stuff, because even the guy with the cowboy hat who's losing everything, you know, you should have known better, especially if he was a quote-unquote vet in the wrestling business. You shouldn't have brought him even back there. You shouldn't have brought him back there. You know, no offense to Kick or whatever, but I don't think that would have helped the wrestling company if everybody knew who already ran it, Rikishi and whoever else. The whole fallout is it's an independent company itself, and it got affected because the WWE ID thing isn't on it. Now, I have my own thoughts about the WWE ID program, but the fact that they're cutting ties with this company says something in itself. The fact that dude lost his job says something. He lost his bookings, that says something. The guy who stopped the fight, a lot of people are trying to get him booked other places because they like that, you know. But it's unfortunate that, you know, if he's a very talented wrestler, which I haven't seen none of his stuff, that this bad situation had to happen for him to get more bookings if he's not already fully booked already. Like I said, I don't know. It's the crazy part. Yeah, I mean, they were called shoot fighters before they were. Yeah, come on, man. Like, that in his ear pumping his nuts. So I feel that's all this AJ do. Yeah, like, you sat there and you talked about you was in character. What wrestling character exposes the business like that to a friend in the back like that? What kind of person says, oh, well, I was just in character? Like, you literally was talking to the guy saying, hey, this guy isn't a wrestler right there. So you mean your character is a wishy-washy cowboy? What's going on, man? But these kind of situations can affect it. Like, a lot of my, you know, when I go to work, a lot of people know that I wrestle and stuff like that. So, like, it was like one of the first things like we talked about, because they were already talking about it before I came into the situation. So it's very important to understand that, like, it doesn't just affect, it affects a lot of stuff. What if you wanted to do a birthday party and promote wrestling, and then they see this and like, oh, I don't want my kids to be subject to that. Like, you know, don't get me wrong, as a parent myself, you definitely have to watch certain things and look at and monitor content that shows up even on YouTube nowadays, because a lot of it is not what it says it is. Now with professional wrestling, it's definitely difficult to try to sell people that is family-friendly entertainment, especially with these kind of situations that's happening, that's on the horizon. I said it before when I was talking to the people I was doing business with. I was telling them, hey, we do wrestling. We set up the ring and everything. Sort of like Hulk Hogan and Stone Cold and The Rock. I was trying to say like popular wrestlers and stuff. And they still was like, hey, when do you have your boxing match? Or when is your MMA meet? Or when is your fight? You know, they say all of this stuff. So sometimes people already have a preconceived notion of what it is because they lump all of it in because it's in a wrestling ring and bodies are, you're hitting somebody with your body or with your hands, which is part of your body. Some people can bleed, all kind of stuff. This is why I don't advocate for deathmatch wrestling. I dang near don't advocate for hardcore. Like, there are certain great ways to do it. And I've done no holds barred matches, cage matches. I've done a lot of these matches before. But like death matches where, you know, light tubes and stabbing each other and forks and stuff. Like, even like, you know, Moxley, what he does. Like, you could talk about, oh, well, he's a multi-time world champion in AEW, but he has wrestled a lot worse since going to AEW. Yeah, he's the heart and soul of AEW. You can say that, but you're going to sit here and say he's gotten better? No, he is not. He's still doing the same stuff. Getting stabbed with forks, stabbing people with forks, hanging with chains, bed of nails, scratching people, biting people, kidnapping people. Nothing is better. None of that stuff is as helping the business at all. It's not. And I'm sorry that I went on a tangent with that situation, but it is what it is. For some reason, it's a lot of companies out there. It's no shade to them, but some people are making a lot of money because people are paying to see that kind of stuff. And I don't think that is the best way to put wrestling in a positive light. Blood is one thing. Pouring out blood is another. Slicing people is another. Glass, all of this other stuff is another. Because most likely you people are going to be best friends after the match. I'm not being best friends with somebody that cut me with glass. But these are the things that go viral. They tend to go viral than standard matches, right? A lot of people, no shade to y'all, a lot of people's favorite match, especially in my era and growing up, a lot of people's favorite match was that triple threat ladder match between the Dudley Boys, the Hardys, and Edge and Christian. And as wrestlers, a lot of us know when a fan says that, we know that, oh, but we know where they are coming from when they say that. They were that in his this guy was blind and brought in because of his father's name, and now the name was and I've said this about Rampage as well. Rampage is a controversial fighter himself. We know this. There are times where people probably should have called the cops or said something about him. He's done bad things. He's done questionable things. He's touched people. He's humped people. He's done a whole bunch of stuff. And a lot of people still like him. And I'm not here saying, like, hate him or whatever, but still, if anything, you should tell, I would be like, hey, son, you shouldn't do that. I mean, they was cussing at each other and stuff, and his son was cussing back. I ain't cussing at my daddy. I'm a wrestler. I ain't cussing at my daddy. I don't care if I can live 500. I'm not cussing at my daddy. That's just something, I don't know. I honor my parents. Hey, that's just, hey, if that's a flex, it's a flex. But that's just me. I'm not doing that kind of stuff. But going into the situation, dude had no business being in that situation. He had no business even being in the ring. He had no business going in the back. They had no business telling him that he could hit him back. You know, I already talk about, I don't even like the celebrities coming in and stuff like that, but some men, they take their shoes off at the door and they respect the business. This guy clearly said did not care about the wrestling company. He was just there to support his friend, and was very loud about saying he was going to mess somebody up. Now, anybody that's in a company, like just sitting in the crowd, you're going to have to keep an eye out just in case they say something like that. Like, this is definitely a topic of discussion. But still, this can affect independent, but I wouldn't say it will kill it, right? Sometimes these things, people get mad at it, and then people will be cool, right? They'll forget about it, or they'll think about something else that is very, very shocking or whatever. But it's not obviously going to kill independent wrestling, but it is going to be something that people are going to think about. Hey, do I want to subject my kids to possibly seeing that? So that's how it could affect independent wrestling. It could affect it in a way like some people could probably be like, oh, well, I'm not interested in watching something like this, because even then, if that people feel like, some people still feel like it's scripted, and it's definitely not. That definitely was not. But people feel like that part is scripted and stuff like that. They're like, hey, I don't want to see no blood and stuff like that. Like, some people do not want to go to wrestling because they feel like it is a blood sport, and some of these companies had this kind of stuff with blood, doing that. But it is what it is. But I did want to speak about that for a little bit. I wanted to speak about it briefly. It can affect it, but it will not kill it. But I do hope you guys have a great day. Even after this live is over, if you have any questions, if you want anything, you want me to talk about something, as long as it's respecting the business, I don't mind speaking about it. I don't mind going live or doing a car vlog about it. Just let me know. Do you think sports entertainment is better than pro wrestling? I'll answer this real quick. Sports entertainment and pro wrestling is almost hand in hand. Sports entertainment, like even when Vince was calling it like sports entertainment, I know a lot of people did not like it, but it is sports entertainment. And it's to the point, you can't differentiate pro wrestling and sports entertainment, because MMA could be sports entertainment. Boxing could be sports entertainment. Hockey, basketball, because you can have somebody that's very entertaining, whether they play basketball or they are a larger than life character. You know, even like when Shaq started playing past his prime, he still was an entertainer. People still wanted to see him. He was funny and stuff like that. Sports entertainment. So you can differentiate it. I remember when WWE did do the move where Vince was calling it sports entertainment, but it was still pro wrestling at the end of the day. The wrestlers still had to be professional. They still had to show up. They still had to do certain things. So I like both. I think with wrestling, you have to be entertaining in this sport. So sports entertainment, you have to be entertaining. And I chime that, and I preach that to a lot of wrestlers, because a lot of people are very talented wrestling wise, but no personality. And it's like, you gotta do more than that. You need to do something that make people remember who you are. And sometimes people have trouble with that. So I do hope I answered your question. But I do hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is Chris Classic. Thanks, Arshawn, for the inspiration. Let's take it home.